I was wanting to do the sound effect. I was trying to find Iron Man 1 for this video, but I'm sorry, I couldn't.
Unfortunately. Okay. Well, now we thought we fell down a rabbit hole with Star Wars, but I think we've fallen down an even bigger one because if we have so much more to do.
We have. Anyways.
But welcome to I guess the first start of the MCU reviews. So, I am joined by
Jonah Morgan.
And Logan will hopefully be trying to join us for a lot more of these, but there will probably be a couple of them where he isn't here. But we are starting with Iron Man. So, and originally, because I know I haven't said this in any videos yet, we said we were going to go franchise by franchise. But at the end of the day, I thought it would be easier if we just go by phase movies.
I think so too.
So, and also because because like what we did with Star Wars and what I did with Spider-Man, where we did ranking videos, the entire MCU would be a lot, and it makes it very, very tricky. So I had suggested that we just rank each movie in each phase.
We'll probably end up having that conversation at some point, but it won't be a video.
We will. It won't be a video.
Because that's a lot.
Yeah. So today we are starting with Iron Man. So we just rewatched this movie right beforehand.
Because it had been a while since I had seen it. It had been probably since a couple years ago since I've seen this movie.
I see this movie quite frequently.
But as a kid, I watched this a lot because I had the DVD.
Mm-hmm.
And there were certain things that I remembered about this movie, and there were certain things that I had forgotten that I needed to go back and rewatch. So
yeah. So starting off with the very, 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 very short section of what we didn't like. Not a whole lot.
The fact that Terence Howard didn't get to be War Machine.
That's more his own fault.
That's his own fault because he wanted more money than RDJ for some stupid reason, even though he's the main character.
Even though he's not only just the star of the movie, but the main character. Now, I get it at this point, Terence Howard was the bigger name before Iron Man came out, or at least at the very least, the more well-received name. Mm-hmm. So, like, I sort of understand it, but at the same time, I'm also like, really? Mm-hmm. But, I mean, Terence Howard as War Machine is still good. Or rather, as Rhodey. He's not War Machine yet. But as Rhodey, I still think he's good. I just think Don Cheadle does it a lot better. One
thing that I was going to come into this thinking about for a negative would be that this movie starts off kind of slow, but I think it works for pacing.
Yeah, no, this movie has some really great pacing.
Because it does start off kind of slow because you don't see Iron Man in a suit until...
Like 30 minutes in.
Like probably 30, 45 minutes into the movie. But looking back, it's good for pacing and it's good for just story setup.
Yeah, because the rest of the story is just so good. And you are invested from start to finish.
That was one thing that I was thinking that I was going to be a negative, but it's not. You can almost tell that it's their first attempt at a movie and they did it well, but yeah. It's very bare bones is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, because
there's not a lot going on. It's pretty linear.
We'll just go ahead and jump to the good. One of the best things about this movie is that not only can you view this as its own thing, like you can view Iron Man as its own movie, and it's still just as incredible but it makes it so much better when you look at it and you think, this is the start of this franchise and this universe.
It also made RDJ the name that he is. He was popular before this, obviously, but this
for good and bad reasons. But RDJ. And I've talked about him a little bit more. The only other movie I've really talked about him is in my Spider-Man Homecoming review.
It's the definition of perfect casting.
Yeah.
There's you look at perfect casting,
there are two people that should come to mind in terms of superhero movies.
It's Chris Evans as Cap and then RDJ as Iron Man.
That's not the two I was going to say, but if you go top three, I say Chris Evans is one. Hugh Jackman is Wolverine, I said is the other one.
Hugh Jackman as Wolverine is perfect. And you get Henry Cavill as Superman in my opinion, because he just looks exactly like him. But RDJ as Iron Man,
Garfield for me.
Iron Man is RDJ just is Tony Stark. I feel like I think that's how he acts in real life.
He is
in all interviews and stuff that he'll be There's an interview that he's with Tom Holland. He acts exactly like Tony.
Yeah,
it's like Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds is Wade
Wilson. Yeah,
Wade Wilson. That's Wade Watts. That's Ready Player One. But he just is Wade Wilson. He just is Tony Stark.
Because especially considering the fact that the rough past that RDJ had with constant drug and alcohol problems, which, at least for the alcohol part, fits Tony Stark to a T. Mm-hmm. So just, and especially seeing like a whole documentary about this whole thing and just like learning about everything that he went through from like since he was a child, and seeing that this was the movie that saved his career. Because if this movie had failed, not only would the MCU movie not have existed as this today, but RDJ would not only like not be as big of a name as he was.
He might be dead.
Probably that too.
He might have been dead.
Probably, but this movie just, it succeeded. Every single possible way you could imagine it succeeded. Because, let's see, you have that. You have Jeff Bridges as Obadiah Stane.
Who I didn't realize was Jeff Bridges until, I hate to admit, but it took a while. Because him without, you know him, the first thing you know him from is this movie. So,
yeah.
like, without the hair, he looks natural, but without the hair, he looks weird. He looks so weird.
Whereas I'm the opposite, because this is really the only thing I've seen Jeff Bridges in. At least the only thing I like remember seeing him in. Because if I've seen him in anything else, it would have been years ago, or something I wouldn't have recognized him.
Yeah, I know him. Well, Big Lebowski is really what a lot of people would say this is, but he has hair in that movie. It's so weird to see.
True, and they do make fun of that. Actually makes the Endgame joke a whole lot funnier.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I think about it.
The Big Lebowski.
Yep. Also, when he becomes Ironmonger,
scary.
He's terrifying. Like, I did not realize just how scary he was. Even as Stane, like towards the end of the movie, he starts getting scary. Then he gets in that suit
because he attempts to murder Tony.
Yeah, and
then he almost kills this car full of innocent people, this family, and the stupidest driver I've ever seen in my life. He runs over Iron Man.
Yeah, which I understand. Like, she'll be that scared because like,
he almost murders a family.
Now,
innocent people.
You know what's funny is that thinking of that family, like imagine that family around the time that like the Avengers happened.
Hey, that's the guy we almost ran over with our car.
Yeah. I actually kind of find that funny, but when he is Ironmonger, he is just absolutely terrifying. And the Ironmonger suit looks really cool. We'll get to Tony's suit in a little bit, but the Ironmonger suit is massive and bulky, but it works.
Yeah, it's just Mark 1, but
bigger and upgraded.
And I think Mark 1 was a lot bigger than I remember it being. I thought, because in the comics,
I remember
it's smaller.
It's slim, and it's a lot more like clean in terms of like just being like flat. Whereas here, it's like you can tell it's like rough parts put together in a cape. And I remember not liking it as a kid because I love the slim version of Iron Man more. But looking back on this suit, this is up there's like one of my favorite Iron Man suits just because it's the first one. And it deserves a lot of respect for that reason.
I think it's comical how slow Ironmonger gets off the ground when he's trying to fly. I think it's hilarious.
Oh, yeah. But then you have the Mark II, which later goes on to become War Machine, which he mainly uses for, like, test flying. He mainly uses it for, like...
a test flight and Rhodey kicking.
And then Rhodey uses it, which we'll touch on that more in Iron Man. In Iron Man 2. But the Mark II was really cool because it had a cool design and it was just silver. But the mother trucking Mark III not only has the best suit up in any superhero movie, fight me. It's one of the coolest looking Iron Man suits ever. The only suit that I think can compete with the Mark III is the Mark 85 from Avengers Endgame. Or maybe stuff like the suitcase armor.
What is that even called?
It's just Mark 5.
That's my favorite.
That's fair.
I do love the Iron Man 3 suit too.
A Mark 42 is also really good. I like the Civil War and Infinity War ones too, but we'll touch on that more when we get to those. So, but the Mark III is just the first time you see him fight those terrorists, and he just kills all of them.
Yeah, no. Whenever you think of Iron Man, you're like, oh, he's telling jokes while he fights. No, he's scary. He's scary.
He barely says a word. Like the scene where the head of that section of the 10 Rings is like hiding, and he's like dialing on the phone, and all of a sudden Iron Man's hand just goes.
Yeah, he pulls him through, and then he leaves him to the people, the people of the town. He says,
and then after that, you get what you told me was like the originator of "Cool People Don't Look at Explosions."
He
shot out of the sky. He shot out of the sky. He gets up out of the rubble, and the shot of like the hand and then the eyes coming up. dodges it, and he's like, oh, that's pretty
big. He
big.
shoots a tiny little...
Walks away
and it blows up.
Explosion.
It's
one of the coolest
the cool
scenes ever. And then the scene with the jets right after is just as
Top
cool.
Gun.
Yeah.
Black Adam.
Funny enough, watching the Top Gun movies and then seeing this makes me like love that so much. This scene so much more because I'm just like, Iron Man is legitimately just a man-made fighter.
It also looks like that scene that's in the new Black Adam trailer where he's flying alongside the two
I did
jets.
get some strong vibes in that.
Yes. That's probably intentional.
Yeah. And then also the entire final
just a jet.
And the entire final fight of this movie is cool, building up tension because Tony has to go back to his original arc reactor.
Tony gets his butt kicked.
And he gets his butt kicked because because you get a real sense of
he's never fought in the thing before except for like civil like
no, not even that. It's like it's primarily due to the fact that one, the Ironmonger suit is bigger and stronger because it's the same thing. It's the fact that he has to go back to his other arc reactor because Stain took his other one. And you get a sense of like how little power he has because just flying to where he needs to get, he's already down to like 40% power, I think. I think that's what Jarvis says. But even still, he goes through half of his power just by flying to Stark Industries from his house. So that entire and like by the end of the fight, he has like no power in his suit and he's almost dead. And he only wins by purely outsmarting Stain. And it's actually, and also with Pepper, a love interest that is actually like useful and doesn't like stand to the side and is like a damsel in distress.
She stands in one spot, like whenever Ironmonger bursts out of like where his suit was like stored, and she's standing in like this parking lot basically.
Yeah,
and
she doesn't move from that spot.
And he calls her later, and she's still standing in the exact same spot that
which to be fair, I can sort of understand why, because like at that point she's just like. Because for all she knows, if she moved, she could end up moving to where the fight could end up moving to. So, I don't really care, honestly.
But it's just hilarious.
It is funny. Also, jump back to an earlier scene. The entire segment, just like where Tony is held captive and he escapes the cave.
My turn.
It's so cool.
That was the one thing that I vividly remember from this movie, because I watched this a lot as a kid. And I remembered when he gets out of the cave, they start firing at him, and then he says, "My turn," and
and then flamethrowers, all of them,
and then flamethrower.
Yeah, that was because that was like from that scene onwards, really from as soon as he came out of the very second we saw the Mark I, we were just like, oh, we're in for a treat of every single scene. Every single action scene in this movie are some of the coolest action scenes in any superhero movie, I said.
Soundtrack.
One of the best soundtracks.
It's Iron Man.
It is every single song is very Iron Man. Whether it's like Black Sabbath or AC/DC, it's some of the best.
Mainly
and I
AC/DC.
think mainly AC/DC, and I honestly, even though Iron Man 3 goes to a bit of a different one, where Iron Man 3 gives him like his own theme, it's still incredible. I think the Iron Man movies have one of the best soundtracks of any like superhero trilogy or franchise or anything.
Yeah, because he's got almost the same taste in music as like Star-Lord does.
I was about to say the Guardians movies are
Guardians is the only one that would be even close.
And maybe Avengers. Well, see, all of them are really good, but like Iron Man, Guardians.
It's because they got like old like rock and pop music.
Yeah.
Coulson, that legend. I totally forgot he was even in this movie, and he just appears out of nowhere.
Freaked out.
Kind of. Because I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Because he just appears. Like, Pepper walks over, and then all of a sudden
he's there.
And then, like, it pans out, and then Coulson's just
because Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is one of my favorite shows ever. I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Which I need to finish.
And it, we'll talk about the unfortunate demise in a couple
reviews.
In a couple movies. But Coulson is just... She's fun.
Great introduction.
He's fantastic. Because I could have sworn the first movie he was in was Thor. Or, like, briefly in Iron Man 2.
He's in Iron Man 2.
He's briefly in Iron Man 2 at the very end. Or, like Thor was his first, big...
He's in Thor for a little bit.
He's in this movie for a good bit.
Yeah, like a little under 10 minutes of screen time, I say.
Same amount of screen time as Darth Maul and Phantom Menace.
True. It'll probably closer to, like, 5 minutes, probably. But... he makes enough of an impression to where he's instantly becomes memorable to where when you get to Avengers...
Oh, he's Coulson. You know him.
Yeah.
You know Coulson, son of Cole.
Oh, this isn't something that necessarily bothered me, but I know it bothered you extremely. Which will probably be in the bad for you. But what's her name? Reporter.
Oh crap.
Christine.
Christine. I hate her. I despise her. I hate her. She's supposed to be hated.
Not even that. She's not even like. I don't think she's like bad. It's
and then he says iron. But it was hilarious that in the final scene, there's all these reporters and they're literally all wearing black.
Yeah, I was looking at.
And she's wearing like really light gray.
Because I was watching it and I was like, hold up, why is she wearing the brightest colors?
Pick out of these people who's the most important character is. And then whenever he says I'm Iron Man, she's the only one. She's the only one sitting down.
I was about to say, and I feel like from that moment when he says,
I am Iron Man.
That is the moment
MCU
like officially starts, because the post-credit scene with Nick Fury.
I remember my dad freaking out when he saw that Samuel L. Jackson was Nick Fury.
I was so unfortunate I never got to see this in theaters. I did not get into Marvel until 2009, because this movie came out 2008.
I remembered 3 things from seeing this movie in theaters. I remember him saying "my turn" when he shoots the flamethrowers. I remembered the credit sequence with like all like the diagrams and blueprints of all of the suits. That's sick.
Which is something they also did in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
They did Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Which is also really cool.
And then my dad freaking out that Samuel L. Jackson was going to be Nick Fury.
Yeah.
Because Samuel L. Jackson has been
also
popular.
Perfect casting.
Has been popular for, oh Lord, since probably
years.
70s, 80s.
Yeah.
Like with like Pulp Fiction, Snakes on a Plane, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like to bring in an A-list actor to play one of the most important characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe was really good.
Yeah, and it was a great way to just say like, because the thing again, they took such a massive risk with setting up the Avengers,
and they immediately set up the Avengers first. Because I think they knew what they had.
They knew this
was going to be good.
They knew the plan that they had for Phase 1.
I bet they had a bunch of people in mind for who.
Probably, but yeah, because I didn't get into Marvel till 2009 with the animated show Iron Man Armored Adventures. That was the show that got me into Marvel. And so I remember when I was younger and I was seeing previews for Iron Man 2 on TV. But I was too young to like watch stuff like that. But then like maybe like a year or so later, I ended up watching some of it anyways. So yeah, so there was all that. So Iron Man has always had that kind of special place in my heart for really being the hero that got me into Marvel, which is why he's my second favorite hero ever, including Marvel and DC. The only hero who tops him is Spider-Man for obvious reasons. Really quick before I think we can get to a final score. This is something I am so upset I have not talked about in most of my other Marvel reviews where this has happened, mostly through my Spider-Man reviews. Stanley. We've got to try to remember to talk about every single cameo he has in reviews going forward.
I think it's hilarious that in this movie, like a whole bunch of other movies, he's just like a no-name old guy character who says something witty But in this movie, he's the CEO of Playboy, Hugh Hefner, because it's at the event that Tony wasn't invited to. That Tony goes to, and he passes Stan, who's surrounded by all these girls. He passes Stan, and he goes, looking good, Hef. And I'm like, Hugh Hefner? What? I mean, the age is probably about right to be Hugh Hefner, because Hugh Hefner's old. Well, he's dead now, but you know.
Well, yeah, but even still, like, it's an age that would fit.
That's funny. He actually was like a famous person. That's funny.
Speaking of fun, the scenes where he first tests out the flight.
Oh, best character in the movie is Dummy.
I was about to say, with Dummy's best character, and the scenes where he's testing out the flying in the garage is so funny.
The first one when he flies and he goes straight up into the wall. There's so many scenes in this movie where you're like, oh, you'd be dead.
Yeah.
You would die.
Yeah, absolutely. Overall.
Do you want to go first?
Sure. So, this movie is very, very, very close to being a 10 out of 10. And I don't really think I have any specific reason for why it's not a 10. I think it's just because with the movies that I do give a 10, because I'm trying to keep myself from not giving everything a 10. So like MCU-wise, there are only 5 movies I give a 10. And out of the 29 movies, that's absolutely fair.
I have 4, maybe 5. Maybe.
I have 5 movies. I have a 10. And the thing is, this could easily be a 10 given any day. But for the most part, I'm going to say I'm giving this a 9.5. Because I think so much of this movie is done so incredibly well. I think all the characters are great. The casting of RDJ was legitimately perfect casting. And because of how much this movie means to Marvel as a whole, with the fact that this was such a massive risk and it paid off, because before this movie, nobody knew or cared about Iron Man. Then because of this movie and over the course of the next couple of years, last time I checked, Iron Man's one of the top 3 most popular superheroes, more popular than Superman. But Superman hasn't been treated that great in movies recently, so that's kind of a reason.
Yeah, all Superman's fame comes from just when he was literally the most popular just character in anything.
And now he's fallen to like number 4 last time I checked. Because last time I checked the top 3, it was like
Batman,
Iron Man, Spider-Man, Batman last time I checked. But this movie means so much to Marvel as a whole. It started the MCU, and I honestly don't think it could have had any better start. And I'm standing by that. This movie was absolutely incredible, and it's so much fun to watch, and it's one of my favorites in the MCU. It's definitely a top 10 for MCU for me. Probably I'd probably say it's like top 7, I would say.
See, I don't really have a specific reason for why I give the score that I did. It might be because you can tell that it's their first one. You're not going to be like, oh my gosh, there's so many characters in this movie. Oh, look, Captain America. Like, you're not expecting it to be, it's bare bones, but it's good. I would say I'm struggling between 8.5 or 9.
I feel like 8.5 is kind of low.
I do 9, but it teeters. But I go 9. It's just, yeah. I'm more of a Captain America person. You're more an Iron Man person. I'll probably give the Captain America higher than.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we'll be switched. I'll give the Captain America
probably, but
higher.
the first Captain America movie is going to get a high score for sure.
Yes.
I
don't have an inherent reason why I'm teetering on 8.5 or 9. It's just, I don't know.
Guess it's just personal preference.
It's personal preference, but I think I go 9.
Yeah. So, yeah, 9.5 for me, 9 for you, and I think that's going to end up doing it for the review for Iron Man. We have a lot more MCU reviews coming, so we're going to try.
I don't want to even think about what's next.
Well, you never know. It could not end up being as bad as we remember it, because
it could Attack of the Clones us and be like good.
Okay, I don't know if it'll do that much, because next is the Incredible Hulk.
Joy.
So, for all we know, it can end up being not as bad to watch, but it's still not going to end up being as good as.
Sorry.
It's not going to be as good as what we just talked about, but we're going to try and make these as frequent as we can, because we have about 3 months until Black Panther Wakanda Forever comes out. So we really want, because the thing is, Wakanda Forever also is the end of Phase 4.
It's Phase 4, yeah, because it wasn't on that chart that he showed.
Yeah, and he said that Wakanda Forever is going to be the conclusion of Phase 4.
What's Phase 5 start with? Ant-Man?
Ant-Man and Lost Quantumania. So what we are going to try to do is we are going to try and get through the MCU not as fast as we can, but as fast as we can. So that way, when we catch up with the MCU, we can do Wakanda Forever and still keep with the trend of ranking the phases. So that way, when we do Wakanda Forever, we can do another video of ranking Phase 4, which will probably be a lot trickier.
Oof.
Because of all the shows.
I still need to finish those.
But I don't know. We'll see about that. But next time will be the Incredible Hulk, and we'll figure out a time to do that. Hopefully, we'll get Logan here. Let us know what you thought of Iron Man down below, and we'll try to do Incredible Hulk sometime within the week. But it all depends on schedules, because with school starting soon, it might make it a little bit trickier. But we'll see. Anyways, that's gonna do it for us, and we'll see you later, Whipheads. That's a couple movies away.